Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Visible Workplace. My name is Tom Rolley and we have an interesting topic. And at first you might think, no, this is an incredibly boring topic, but I want you to hold that thought, hold that consideration. Today's episode on the podcast, The Wonderful World of Templates. Templates? Come on, Tom, you gotta be kidding me. Templates, that's like the most boring thing in the world. Well, I want you to consider that templates might hold a key to getting your team and yourself getting better results, because templates offer us a massive time saving, that we can go to a template and a lot of work has already been done. That template represents a shortcut, an ability to go to it and use it and get the work that is contained in it done, and in that not have to sort out a whole bunch of other things that could have been done. So templates could be incredibly boring though. It's just like, oh yeah, it's just a template. And yet what we see in the marketplace is that templates routinely sell very well, either as an offer for a free template or for paid products and services and experiences. They provide templates. Here's a template for this, here's a template for that. So let's open up a little bit into the world of templates and why it might be important when we're dealing with trying to make things visible in a workplace. Well, the problem is that they are often sold and they're often provided and yet not that often used. And this is a great difficulty. This is a great problem. Why? Well, people who are giving away templates or selling templates have put a lot of work into making sure that that template does what it says it does. And presumably when someone like you or me joined in and said, you know what, I want that template, there was a reason for that. We weren't just stumbling around on the internet hoping to get something done. No, there was some degree of problem that was causing us some pain, causing us some issues, causing us difficulties. And then perhaps there was an article, there was an email, there was an advertisement that this came and said, hey, if you have this problem, then here is a template. And yet, even though I've said, yep, give me the template, the actual application is very small. I want you to consider also that books, these amazing things called books that are highly condensed versions of people's experience and learning and difficulty, often 5, 10, 20 years of work condensed down into this book. They provide it all, the templates, the steps, and yet most books get read. Perhaps there's a learning, but very little gets implemented. And so these templates are incredibly powerful, but not often used. Next up, we've got this kind of peculiar relationship with what are these things? What is a template? And it's kind of in this twilight zone, this weird kind of twilight zone, because at some level, a template is like a process. It's saying, hey, do this and then do this and do this. Like if you imagine a template with, let's say, 3 questions on it, and your job to complete the template was to fill in those questions. Well, the process says, hey, copy the template and use it. But you could also have a step-by-step process that said, answer, excuse me, answer this first question, and then answer this second question, and then answer this third question. But in the template, we've got these 3 questions. You just copy that and off you go. And so is it a process? And yet on the other side, when we copy that template and fill in the questions, what have we got? Well, we've actually got a result. Like that's the value. We've got a result here that is quite valuable. And so well, hang on. Is it a process or is it a result? Like, what is this thing? And this can lead to significant amounts of confusion. It's like, well, I don't know where to put these templates. Are they a process? Are they a result? Which one goes where? And this is quite confusing. Next up, we've got some accidental things that can happen with templates. Now, I don't know whether you've had this experience, but if you open up a template that is not protected, like a Google Doc or a Word document, and you get to work, and in your enthusiasm to get the work, what you are doing is completing the raw template. And next time you come around, you don't find an empty template, but instead now there's a completed template, a filled in template. This is an accidental usage of the template. Someone forgot to copy the template before it got used. And this can be very confusing because it's like, oh, what was this work done? Have we got this work? Do we need to make a copy of this work? Where should this work be? Where does it fit? Which client is it for? Which work is it for? And now there is doubt. And that is a significant problem. And so if this does happen, well, we need to know what to do. But this is a risk. Now, some types of templates don't have this risk. There are such things as protected templates. And one type that you might be familiar with is a form. That here is a template that can be filled in, and when you complete the template, it sends you a copy of that form. But the form itself is protected. It's impossible unless you have the back-end access, the passwords to it, to change that template. Can't be done. And so this is one solution to protect a template. And another one is a locked PDF. Like some PDFs are locked. Like you can't change the underlying template. If you fill them in, it automatically makes a copy. And so both of these, the PDF and the form, are acting in the same way. They're acting as protected templates. And you might not have thought of them like that. You might have thought of them as a form or a locked PDF, but what you are actually dealing with is a template. But it's a little bit more advanced to protect against this problem that accidentally filling in templates causes a lot of difficulties. And finally, we've got one more problem, and that is, well, where do we track these things? Where do we keep the template version? Where do we keep the copied versions? How do we link to them? And this is where a lot of difficulty can come. If you're not clear on what a template is it a process or is it a result? How do I link to it? If your mechanism for linking to it is inadequate, which is classical in a workplace where we can't see, where we are blind, we don't have any tracking on any of this stuff, then we have confusion, then we have rework, then we have lost work, then we have templates that got filled in for the wrong idea. They got filled in for the right idea, but now we can't find them. We have a world of pain of this incredibly powerful tool of a template. And yet it can lead to frustration, difficulty. It can lead to people blaming each other. Why did you do it that way? And yet these issues are inherent when we don't have a way to see the work of the business, when we don't have a way to see the processes of the business. And so this tracking of templates becomes a nightmare. Very easy to make mistakes, very easy to accidentally fill in the wrong thing, very easy to lose templates, very easy to download a template that was going to solve a problem that I have, and yet I don't use it. Why? Because I've got no way to make it visible, no way to bring it into the business successfully for me to use, for my team to use. And so they sit in places where we can't find them. And you can go through and kind of discover in people's Google Drive or their Dropbox, they're like, oh, check this out. We had this template. We had this, and yet we're not using it. Now, it could be that the usage case for that template has passed and we no longer need it, but potentially that's not the case, that whatever it was still a very good solution for the problem that it solved. And the problem was not the template was inadequate or the template was wrong, but it just never made it into the business for us to see where it was and how to use it. But on the other side of all this is a different reality. With a visible workplace, a place where we can see the work, where we can see processes, where we can see templates, then the value of these templates goes way up. That you could potentially download giveaway templates and extract massive value from them, not because they're different, not because they're anything other than they promised, they're all of that, but because they got inserted into the business and they can now be used. That we could say, here, if we have this problem, use this template, fill it in, and we'll have this problem solved. But this is the problem of the visible workplace, that templates are part of a greater problem that we're facing in our modern world. Remember that we've talked about in the past on the podcast that in the physical world, it's much easier to see things and interpret logically and go, right, if I'm going to want a hamburger, then I'm going to need a couple of things that are quite easy to both visualize in the real world, but also visualize in the mind. But as we head into a virtual world, a world of computers where we're doing work on computers, which is the reality for most of us or many of us, that it becomes more difficult to find things. They have many hiding places. In the physical reality, there's only really one. It's either on the table or it's not. Like the hamburger's on the table. I can see it. It's got a bun. It's got lettuce. It's got some meat, or it's got like a vegetarian bit. It's got cheese if you're into cheese. It's got some sauce. It's got a top bit. The top of the bun. I can see it. I'm like, okay, if I want to make that bun, then it's very clear what I'm going to need. I'm going to need these ingredients. I'm going to need to put them together in a particular order, and I will have a hamburger. I don't really need a template for it, although you can think of it like that. That there is a template for a hamburger that we are now copying and bringing into physical reality. We don't typically think about that because it's really quite obvious with physical things. But in the virtual world, in the computer world, in the online world, in the cloud, with remote workers, with part-time workers, with job sharing, with headhunting. Now we got some problems. But if we can make these templates an asset, then they bring great value to our world. Next up, let's solve this Twilight Zone problem. What is a template? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer, that is both. It's kind of like a Schrodinger's cat. Is the cat alive or dead? I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but in quantum mechanics, the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. And it's not until we open the box that we know whether the cat was alive or dead. I don't know whether the cat knows it is or not. We can never find out, because as soon as we look, then we know, and the cat knows. But this template, as a raw template, an unused template, can be referenced in the processes. Use this template. If it's an unprotected one, copy it, then use. If it's a protected one, well, we can just link to the form or link to the PDF. And that gets you access to the template. But when you copy it, or you fill in the form or fill in the PDF, and it produces an outcome, a completed template, now that is the result. And so in the process, we've got a link to the raw template, and in the results, we've got a link to the completed template. So there's two different things here. There's a raw template that is a process or linked to in a process, and then the outcome, the result, is the completed template. And so it appears twice, an unfilled template and a filled template. One in the process, one in the results. And we should link to both of them, and that would enable us to see them. And when we first execute this system, the process will be documented to the raw template, but the result of the completed template will be empty. It hasn't been done yet. But when it gets completed, then it is available. As I've said, these fancy templates are very, very useful. The fancy templates are the forms and the protected and locked PDFs. Why? Because they prevent changing the underlying template unintentionally. It's very rare that someone is going to want to fill in a template on a Google Doc and going to make massive changes to it. Most often that's going to be an error. And to recover from that, well, you have to make another copy of the work that gets done, otherwise you'll lose it, and then revert the template back. And Google Docs does this really well. It's like, hey, pull it back, and voila, your template's back. But it's an extra step, and if it's been going on for a while, then it can be quite confusing. But nonetheless, these fancy options, these improved versions of templates should be considered. And if you get a template from somebody else, then make a decision. Is this worthwhile bringing through as a form? Is this worthwhile bringing through as a locked PDF to prevent difficulties? And it depends on the skill set of your people. If they're very aware that a Google Doc is an unprotected template, then hopefully they're like, yeah, no worries. But if they haven't been trained or they're not aware of the problems with templates, then it might well be worthwhile investing into these more protected versions. And the ultimate possibility for you is to open up to a world of other people's templates. There is a limited amount of time that all of us have. Well, like we're struggling with, well, not struggling. Well, I got 24 hours, you got 24 hours. Hopefully we've got some sleep in there. Recommend that, up to 8 hours. I aim for 7. Sometimes I get 8. Sometimes I get 6, and it affects me. I definitely notice when I get 6. But we have all of these people very successfully bringing out their templates, and whether it is in a paid form, like a book or a seminar or a webinar or a course, or it's a free offer. Hey, take my template. Take my template. If you know what to do with that and you can go, okay, I can see what this template is doing, and that this result that it's creating is going to fit exactly where we need it in our business. Oh, is it a marketing template, or is it a fulfillment template? Is it a sales template, or is it an advertising template? Is it an accounting template? Is it an optics template? But each of those places in the business will have problems that can be solved with other people's templates. And so you could go along and say, oh, wow, look at the people who have solved this at a vast level. They have the templates and they're being used by their teams to get the work of the business done. And you can do that too. But we need to know how to use them. Other people's templates suddenly to you have far greater value than just a never got used or got used once and then never used again. The real value of other people's templates is it's unlikely to be a one and done, perhaps, but most likely it's going to be, hey, we're going to use this again and again and again. Going to bring through a different version. Let's say we want to make a new offer. Well, what are the templates that create an offer? And if you have those and you can deploy those and execute on them, then great. All you have to do is have those templates executed and suddenly there's a new offer. Same with the funnels, same with an email sequence, same with the customer experience. with fulfillment on your products or your services, tracking coaching calls. All of these things can be done with templates, but they will not happen if they remain invisible. And so what are we going to do here? Like, how are we going to deal with this? Well, I want you to consider that there's a design called the magic board. And unlike project management and unlike standard operating procedures, we're going to bring both of those together so that we can see the work that's getting done, but also the instructions for how to do it, and most importantly, who's going to do it. You see, having all of this designed and running and looking good doesn't make any difference if people aren't there to do the work. And perhaps in this modern age, well, you could have some AI for sure. AI does them work. It's like, hey, here's the template, load this into the AI, and voila, out it comes. I'm sure you've had this experience with the ChatGPT or the Google Bard or whatever it is, that the AI is very good at executing work, but it needs instructions. Right now, AI is of very limited usage to me while I'm producing this podcast. I'm like, maybe I'm like some kind of amazing human being where I can be typing out instructions to an AI. Perhaps I could have already loaded up the AI and it's working, but it's so fast that, I mean, what are we going here? We're up to maybe 20 minutes into the podcast that most likely that AI has already run out of work. It's particularly quick, but the ability to track the work of the people or the AI is critical. That's what makes it visible. And if we have this magic board design with our processes that document what to do, that is where the template can go. Use this template. And if it's a protected one, link to where you fill in the form or link to the locked PDF. If it's not a protected one, then you'll have to specify and say, hey, copy this and presumably move it out of the place that you store your templates in. See, it's a good practice, perhaps, to consider that perhaps you should store your templates in a consistent location. And if you want to get really fancy, you could have your active templates and your inactive ones, your draft templates. That would include templates that you've downloaded but haven't built into a magic board yet. That this is a skill set. It's not a hard skill set. It's pretty easy. It's like, okay, well, if I made a process that said run this template, use this template, and then I filled it in, what would I get? And you'll get a result. And then that'll tell you what that magic board does. And perhaps there's multiple templates. Perhaps there's only one template. Perhaps there's too many templates and you need to split it up. Perhaps there's the ability to run multiple systems at once, multiple magic boards at once, and you need to split them and have different team members working on them. But all of that comes into the art of setting up these systems in magic boards. But the overall concept that I want you to catch is that the process is where you should put the template. Use this template. And then when you have the result, then drop that into the results section. Here's the completed template. And suddenly you have the ability to go, okay, great. I can see that this template got done. I can find it quickly. You've got a link. Yes, you could search in Google Drive or Dropbox, and that's fine, but it does require a consistent effort from people to name their things well. And even then, losing documents is brutal. Much happier to be able to pull up the project management and go, oh, there it is. We found it. It was tracked. And so a skill set of tracking these templates when they're completed is valuable. Your team will need to do that. Or you risk not being able to find something. And the stress and the worry, particularly if many hours have gone into a particular product or a particular client's work, and suddenly it can't be found, this is a stressful situation. And so that immediate ability to grab the link and drop it in, it's not a lot, maybe 2-3 seconds. But if it's there and it saves you 2 or 3 minutes or 2 or 3 hours, then suddenly that 2 or 3 seconds becomes a wonderful insurance against loss of work. A little bit of discipline, sure, but now we can see the results. We can find them easily. And then you can get fancy. You can consider using these forms or using these locked PDFs, that this prevents the copying. And so you put all this together, you start to see that templates become incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. Number one, you don't have to do all the work. There are other people that have already documented their templates that work, that you can find them on the internet. You can buy them from people. They can coach you on them. There's many different ways to get templates into your world, but what you must be able to do is get them usable. And to do that, we need 2 things. One is we need a way of finding the template. Where's it kept? Which template do I use? And as the business grows, and you might have, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 different templates in a folder, what worked early on just to be able to scroll through the 2, 3, 10 templates and find the one you want may not work so well anymore. But as you get many templates for doing things, you actually need an ability to find it quickly. And if you link to it in the process, then what? You're at the right template. And then when that work gets done, then we track that completed template. Now, ideally, you would move the completed template out of the templates folder. Otherwise, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to end up with a templates folder full of not just templates, but also all of the completed versions as well. And you might be okay with that. You might be fine to say, look, we're just going to store them all here, templates and completed work, in which case the tracking becomes even more important. You might have several hundred or a couple of thousand versions of completed documents as you go along. And now we've got a real problem. Inability to find that document in amongst 1,000, particularly when a lot of the words will be similar in a template. And so your search function becomes less valuable. Linking, making things visible in the workplace becomes increasingly valuable. Decreases lost work, decreases errors, makes it easy to do things. These are all the advantages. If you want to check this out, head over to magicboards.io. Magicboards with an S.io. And you can check out this design. You can have a look how to set this up so that you can see the processes and put templates in them, the raw templates in the process. And then where you put a line in the results for that completed template. You'll also be able to see how a magic board allows you to track the status, how it allows you to track your due dates, how it allows you to track your responsibilities. Who is going to do this work? And all of that comes together in a consistent single design that across all of your business, whether you are fulfilling on a client's purchase or whether you're designing your next offer, whether you're doing your accounting or whether you are getting a bank loan for funding to expand. All of these things are done with the same design, meaning that you, as a business owner, can see what's going on. You can see where everything's up to, you can find what's needed, and you can cope with the inevitable chaos that we face in today's world of people being sick, of people changing, of people quitting, of people leaving, of people being headhunted, of all of these things, people working remotely suddenly go away. and the value of other people's templates as you seek them out or find them in your journeys around the internet, suddenly for you goes way up. No longer are you using that template 0 times or 1 time only, but suddenly it becomes available in your business for you to use and for your team to use on an ongoing basis. If this is something that interests you, head over to magicboards.io. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Visible Workplace podcast. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. If you haven't already, subscribe and like. And if you do know another business owner struggling with the difficulties of not being able to see the work, then please share up this episode with them. All right, thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on next week's episode. See you then. Thanks for joining us at the Visual Workplace. This is a notification that the information and ideas discussed here are general in nature and do not take into account your specific circumstances. You should seek specialist advice for any medical, financial, emotional, mental, or other difficulties that you are facing with appropriate specialists and professionals so that they can apply your specific circumstances and give you the required advice. Thank you for joining us, but this is also a notification that all information is indeed general in nature and not specific for your personal circumstances.